I'm Dr. Brad Hafford, archaeologist and economic anthropologist. Welcome to Note Nook, where I take a close look at a banknote from the relatively recent past. In this series, I'm analyzing paper money from around the world, paying close attention to one example in each episode. As an anthropologist, I'm more interested in what money says than what it's worth, and it says a great deal about the government that issued it and the people who used it. Today, we look at a 5 franc note issued in French West Africa in 1942. We begin by looking at the obverse, or front of the note. This side typically emphasizes the issuing authority and often carries an image of an important person from the country. The important person in question is a young African woman with elaborate braids and jewelry. I couldn't find out who the engraving is based on, but on this note, she represents in general the people of the West African states, which at the time were French colonies. Her hair is truly amazing, with its swept-back braids culminating in a tightly wound spiral braid at the back. In many places, ornaments are woven into the braids, and some of these are coin-like, particularly those at the upper portion of the woman's head. These are strung in 2 parallel lines from the top of her head down to a large circular earring. Other ornaments are more akin to cowrie shells, such as those running from the back of her head to her neck. Cowrie shells were often holed so that they could be strung together, and another string of probable cowries is attached to a cloth band that hangs to the side across the woman's temple. She also wears a thin metal band, perhaps copper, around her forehead, and a string of beads hangs directly down in front of her nose. Other strings of small beads hang at the back of her head, and around her neck are many larger beads. Elaborate hairstyles and ornamentations were social symbols of cultural significance. Even today, many women of West Africa braid their hair in intricate styles with coins, beads, and cowrie shells. Perhaps the most similar to this particular hairstyle is the tradition of the Fulani tribe in the Sahel region of Burkina Faso at the border with Mali. The French issuers of the note in 1942 may have been somewhat aware of the cultural significance of the hairstyle, but the image of the woman served their purposes mainly to represent the people of the region and to emphasize that the note itself symbolized value. The items worn in the woman's hair are value, both cultural and material. Coins are the most recognizable as material wealth today, but cowrie shells, copper wire, and trade beads were all currency types in historic West Africa from the year 1400 or earlier. The issuing authority is emblazoned across the top, Banque de l'Afrique Occidentale, or BAO for short. In English, this is the West African Bank, and it existed from 1901 to 1955. Even though it issued money for a large region of West Africa, its headquarters were in Paris. This is because the area it served was a conglomerate of 8 French colonies: Mauritania, Senegal, French Sudan, which is now Mali, French Guinea, now just Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire, Upper Volta, which is now Burkina Faso, Dahomey, now Benin, and Niger. The note carries signatures of French bank officials, the Secretary General, and the Comptroller General. The name of the bank also appears in the security background. That's a subtle gold color print that's repeated to form a pattern that's hard to copy because it's really small. The shadow thrown by the denomination and by the central woman add a bit of subtlety that increases detail, but the note doesn't really have many security features. Most notes would include at least a watermark, an area within the paper that shows an image when lit from behind, but this one does not. It does have a relatively intricate webbed framework that includes rather architectural egg and dart and leaf designs. It also has a corner geometric design, but the webbed frame is rather typical of North American banknote printers, with not much attention to African design or aesthetic. It is a colonial note, and it was printed in Philadelphia, as seen in the mark of E.A. Wright Company at the bottom. The paper is not overly special. Banknotes are often printed on paper that contains security threads and create a look and feel that's difficult to recreate with normal papers, but this one doesn't seem to have those protections. It was part of an emergency issue of small notes that only circulated from 1942 to 1943. It's a complicated time in West Africa and the world overall. Part of that complicated history is seen in the wear patterns of this particular note. Now, it's not in bad shape, but it has some discoloration, and it has ink on its obverse where someone has written a date, February 1944. An interim government had taken control in 1944, and a new emergency issue of 1 and 2 franc notes had been issued, but these 5 franc and larger notes were still to be found at that time. Soldiers frequently picked up small notes like these and taped them together, then rolled the long string of notes up into a cylinder known as a short snorter. And this they carried with them as souvenirs of the places they'd been. Evidence of the old tape that once stuck this note to another is clearly seen at the right, making this the leftmost note of the snorter, essentially the place where this soldier began the journey. We'll talk more about short snorters in a bit, but first, let's examine the reverse. The reverse of a note typically emphasizes the laws that authorize the issuance and/or the laws that protect it. This note follows that format, citing Article 139 of the Penal Code that designates hard labor as a punishment for counterfeiters. This side is given over entirely to text and geometric design, continuing and expanding the intricate webbed frame of the front. Only this time, it's in a maroon color. There are even more architectural elements supporting it, and it holds the number 5 in a central marquee that is in a rather embellished Art Deco style. The text elaborates the issuing bank once more, as well as the denomination and the date of issuance, 14 December 1942. The West African franc at the time was meant to be on par with the French franc, which was set around 177 to the pound sterling. 5 francs was therefore somewhere just under 10 US cents at the time. Again, we find a security background, this time in light blue. As on the front, it is the name of the bank in ovals, repeated in subtle frames behind the maroon text and designs. The printer's tagline is once again found on this side, as is the residue from the old cellophane tape. So what does this note tell us about French West Africa in 1942? This was a time of war, and North Africa in particular saw a great deal of combat. Operation Torch landed 90,000 American troops in Morocco and Algeria in November of 1942, and this note was issued only a month later. But the 8 colonies of French West Africa lay just south of the main action where the American allies pushed to aid embattled British troops in Libya and Egypt. In June of 1940, when the Germans invaded France, the colonies known as French Equatorial Africa sided with the French Free Forces under Charles de Gaulle, but West Africa, Morocco, and Algeria did not. They remained under the Vichy regime, the government of southern France that signed agreements with the Germans and enforced many of their laws. The people of Equatorial Africa provided much of the French resistance in the early part of the war, and the French Free Forces began to print money for circulation there, declaring BAO notes to be invalid. Indeed, the BAO was under the control of the Vichy government and continued to print money for North Africa and West Africa, increasing the limits for printing almost every month by early 1942. This is indicative of inflation and heralded the need for the emergency issue of small notes like this one. A large 5 franc BAO note had been circulating since 1934 and now circulated alongside these much smaller and less intricate notes. When the Allies landed in North Africa in 1942, they hoped that Vichy French forces would welcome them. Some did switch sides immediately, but many fought. Nevertheless, within a few days, the Allied forces had control of most of Morocco and Algeria. General Eisenhower made agreements with the Vichy administration, much to the chagrin of Charles de Gaulle. Many of the racially and religiously charged Vichy laws remained in place, and the BAO notes continued to circulate. Many soldiers picked up small notes along their push through North Africa, stringing them together in short snorters. These were often embellished with the signatures of fellow soldiers, and off-duty soldiers might call for their friends to compare snorters in a bar. Anyone without a snorter might be called upon to buy the next round. It was a way to unwind, so to speak, and to remember the journey and one's compatriots, even though that journey was often filled with extreme hardship and even death. The Vichy Governor-General of French West Africa, Pierre Boissin, was finally ousted in June of 1943. He was arrested and imprisoned only 6 months later. It was the beginning of healing, but it didn't happen quickly. Most texts say that when Operation Torch landed, Vichy Africa sided with the Allies. This is mostly true, but it was not an immediate shift. It would take to the end of the war and longer to push many of the Vichy administrators and discriminatory laws out, and many more years to become independent of French rule. Guinea became the first independent among this group in 1958, but it wouldn't be until 1974 when all were fully independent. Even today, French influence can be seen, and monetary issues for the area are relatively French in inspiration. Nevertheless, they circulate in autonomous nations and more fully display the amazing cultural traditions of the West African peoples. I hope you enjoyed looking at this banknote with me. I'm Dr. Brad Hafford. Join me again next time on Note Nook, part of my series, Money Talks.